The Nash bargaining solution is for two players to split the surplus an agreement would create. Here are the characteristics of the setting. Two players can either agree or disagree. Expanding the number of players is a trivial extension of the general concepts. The rules of the negotiation are ambiguous. This means that game theory, which we're going to discuss a little bit later on, does not apply. Third rule, both players are equally good negotiators. We'll explore at the end of this lesson what happens when one player is a better negotiator than the other. An agreement specifies how much each player received from a fixed outcome. An agreement if the two players disagree, each receives a disagreement outcome. The disagreement outcomes may vary. Nash concluded that the only reasonable outcome is for the players to split the surplus an agreement would create. Now, how can an analyst identify the Nash bargaining solution? And the analyst can identify the Nash bargaining solution by learning the two disagreement outcomes and the agreement outcome. We'll use some notations. Let's A equal the agreement outcome. Let A1 and A2 be the portion of A each player receives when they agree, and D1 and D2 be the two disagreement outcomes. So if they agree, each player or player 1 gets A1, player 2 gets A2. If they disagree, player 1 gets D1 and player 2 gets D2. The negotiation is about what are the values for A1 and A2, or better yet, the negotiation determines the value for A1 and A2 if they can both agree. The surplus created when the players agree is the difference between the value, the agreement outcome, and, let's back up. The surplus created is the agreement outcome less the two disagreement outcomes. Nash says that the reasonable solution is to split that surplus. Therefore, the reasonable solution is for A1, they get 1/2 of the surplus created plus their default value. A2 gets 1/2 of the surplus created plus their default value. Help! Can you give me an example? Sure, I can give you an example. Consider the following setting. Two firms are negotiating terms for a merger. The market value of the combination is $130. The market value of firm 1 is $30, and the market value of firm 2 is $20 if the merger fails. Notice, without the merger, the combined value is $50. With the merger, the combined value is $130. So the merger is creating 130 minus 50, what's that, 80? Yeah, the merger is creating $80 of surplus. The Nash bargaining solution is to agree to the merger under the terms below. The shareholders of firm 1 receive 1/2 of the surplus plus their default value. So they'll get 1/2 of 80 plus their default value of 30. 40 plus 30 equals 70. The shareholders of firm B receive the same $40 split of the surplus plus their default value, which is only 20. They get $60 as the outcome in the Nash bargaining solution. Let's look at some things that would change the outcome. What happens if smart lawyers find a way to void a contract with another potential buyer that increases the market value of the combination to $140? So I have in mind here some contract where if these two parties merge, they've got to pay somebody else because there's some option to purchase that existed prior to the negotiation. And if you can get rid of that contract, they wanted to pay this money to the potential suitor, and the market value of the combination is in fact $140 instead of $130. In that case, both payoffs rise by $5. They split the $10 increase in market value between the two players. On the other hand, what happens if some smart lawyers find a way to avoid a contract with suppliers that decreases the market value of the combination to 90? Perhaps there's a long-term contract that gives one of the firms a low prices guaranteed going into the future, but a lawyer figures out a way to avoid that contract if the firm merges. As a result, the firms are not able to get resources as cheaply as they thought they could, and so the market value goes from $130 down to $90 if the merger occurs. In that case, the market value has fallen by $40. They're each going to lose $20. The payoff to A and the reasonable solution is now 50. Now, so the payoff to 1 is now 50, and the payoff to 2 in the reasonable solution is now 40. Now, suppose firm 1 secures an offer from another suitor that would make its market value be $60 instead of $30. They get sort of what's called a contingent offer. If the merger with your negotiation partner doesn't come through, I'll pay you $60 for the firm. What happens then? In that case, the surplus is reduced by 30, but A's default value is increased by 30. The net result is that A's outcome in the negotiation rises by 15, and B's outcome in the negotiation falls by 15. The reasonable solution is for A to receive $85 of the 130, and for B to get $45 of the 130. And finally, what happens if shareholders file a suit that would make the market value of firm 2 be $10 instead of 20 should the merger fail to occur? That's going to increase the payoff to A by 5, and it's going to decrease the payoff to B by 5. The surplus is now increased by $5. That's going to tend to make them both $5 better off, but 2's default value has gone down by 10. That reduces 2's payoff by 10. So 2's payoff went up by 5 and then fell by 10, and that impact is a decrease of $5. The bargaining solution suggests several tactics to increase what you obtain. 1. Increase the value of the outcome that you and your negotiating partner create when you agree. You keep 1/2 of the increase. 2. Increase what you would obtain if the negotiation fails. In a successful negotiation, the reasonable outcome is for you to keep 1/2 of the increase. 3. Decrease what the other party would obtain if the negotiation fails. You get to keep 1/2 of the decrease. Now, what happens if one person is a better negotiator? The better negotiator acquires more than 50% of the surplus. How much more depends on the size of the difference in negotiation skills. Here are some tactics suggested by the Snagit solution that may help you be a better negotiator. First, emphasize how little you are getting in the negotiation and how much you would get if the negotiation fails. Try to create the feeling that you won't mind saying no to the negotiation. Exaggerate how small the difference between what you're getting in the negotiation and what you would get otherwise is, if you can do so without losing credibility. Second, emphasize how much the other party is getting in the negotiation and how little it would get if the negotiation fails. Try to create the feeling in the other party that it really wants to say yes. Exaggerate how large the difference between what it is getting in the negotiation and what it would get otherwise is if you can do so without losing credibility.